Welcome back. Those in these services industries are hardest hit, but they're not the only ones. With cost base an issue for many companies, even corporates aren't immune to redundancies and hiring freezes as COVID packs a punch to companies' bottom lines.
It's been just over a month since I left my former company. I was working for one of the big four consultancy firms as head of fintech. It was a surprise to me. I understand the economic environment, but I think the area that I was in, I knew that would be accelerated because of COVID and because more companies are now looking at their digital strategies. So I think for my role in particular, it was a surprise.
Avril Ray has worked for large corporates for over 20 years. She came to Hong Kong 10 years ago and was with her last company for just a year. The role she had was a newly created position. With a background in engineering, IT, and business development, she should have been bulletproof, but COVID still managed to get her in her pocket. So she took to social media.
I posted publicly on LinkedIn my situation because I have quite a big network and everybody has been amazing. I didn't realize how much reach the LinkedIn post would have, and it actually got to over 136,000 people around the world. So I think there was a very good response, and so I spent the last few weeks following up on those contacts and existing people reaching out to me, new people my post resonated with them.
She says she's had a lot of meetings, but nothing has come through yet. As a foreigner, she feels using her network is key to finding a job, since most recruiters have boxes to tick and most require bilingual or trilingual in Cantonese and Mandarin, which she is not. Recruitment agencies are also down as demand to fill roles has dropped.
We're currently around 38% down on the normal active jobs we'd be working on in the market. So that's fairly material. When COVID came, Hong Kong was already in a recession. So you've got a hit when the city's already a little bit down, and that has an exacerbated impact.
Yeah, you've had some really senior positions. Could that also be a liability?
Yeah, absolutely. I think people are definitely looking at saving costs, and when they're hiring more junior positions. I think when you reach my level, the volume of jobs is definitely less, so it takes more time.
She says she's busier now than when she was working, and she's saying yes to everything, keeping her options open and meeting both big companies and startups. Leaving Hong Kong isn't an option she's ready to take just yet.
I've been here for 10 years and I'd like to leave when I'm ready to leave rather than having to leave. And, I enjoy living here. The dogs are settled here. We are able to fly to our respective families.
Sharmini Wainwright confirms that those with a background like Avril's are in high demand.
Technology and digital roles and job types have been in huge demand, and it really amazed us. We came back in March, and the one practice area for us that kept being able to close deals and place candidates was our technology and digital practices. So encouraging to see a very fast adaptation to what the new market was.
She adds that while there have been a few layoffs from corporates, especially those who've pledged to keep their people until the end of 2020, we may not see the worst of it until next year.
Should global economies not return to a rate that we expect, will there be a spill early next year of candidates in the market? So I would say it's probably more early next year than the latter part of this year. Because the other thing is you've also got a lot of the big banks, so the big employers globally saying we pledge not to let our people go during COVID. Great, that's exactly the sort of gestures we need. But when 2021 comes, perhaps things need to change.
Thank you.
Avril says she's giving herself 3 months to find a job. In the meantime, she's trying to manage the family budget.
Being the main breadwinner in my family, it does put a lot of stress in terms of making sure you can pay the bills. Fortunately, my landlady has been very gracious and has given us a reduction for a few months to help us, through this period. So, but yeah, it's definitely a stressful time. We have a loan and we have our rent. They're probably the biggest outgoings. We have a helper for the dogs. We don't want to put her in a situation where she may have to go home. She's part of our family, so we're trying to make sure that we can try and keep her as well.
The loan is for a bar her husband has been trying to open since last year, but the protests put that on hold. He had hoped to open it in January when COVID hit. He hired a manager to start in March.
It was around April, May, and it was right when Mrs. Lamb suspended all licenses. So we legally were not allowed to open, and we did not. And so I think we got about 3 days in before those licenses were suspended.
Damien says he spent about $2 million on the place so far since he got it a year and a half ago. The current restrictions on bars prohibit him from opening.
We can deliver alcohol for parties or private stuff. We get to deliver to junks that don't supply the alcohol. People we know call us and we supply it to them, which is great. It gives us some income. Every little bit helps.
So far, he's managed to get 2 small subsidies from the government. He's hoping to qualify for the larger subsidy once his full license comes through.
You've got to continue to pay the rent. You've got to continue to pay suppliers. You've got to keep electricity on. Otherwise, all your fridges turn off and everything goes sour. So yeah, we just soldier on and best we can.
With the third wave of COVID extending the shutdown of bars, he's looking to when he can finally open and still sees a silver lining for the place.
I think it's changed people's thinking, and a lot of people are thinking the what if. And I don't think there's going to be there's the line in the sand, COVID-19's finished, we can all soldier on. So I like to think that a small venue like this may actually thrive in that, because people won't want to go somewhere where there's 80 to 100 people they don't know. So that local mentality may serve us well.
Right now, there's an average of 750 monthly bankruptcy petitions for the first half of this year. That is up from 720 last year. If this third wave is prolonged, economists predict this number will continue to rise.
I think with the third wave, it's possible to see that the government will still roll out more stimulus. There is still some funding that sits in the previous program, like the anti-epidemic fund, maybe about 260 million Hong Kong dollars that were supposed to be allocated to the tourism sector, and that's still unused. So maybe they can use at least part of that funding to help the retailers and restaurants, especially, that are suffering at the moment.
He expects the unemployment rate to go up to 6.5%, but he sees the innovation and technology sector in Hong Kong growing, especially with the development of the Greater Bay Area.
Hong Kong and China continues to integrate, then a lot of the big tech companies in Shenzhen can cooperate with, say, the universities or some of the tech companies in Hong Kong, which are very good at research and development. They have been doing that for the past few years, but I think with the continued integration, there will be a lot more of this kind of activities, and that would certainly benefit Hong Kong.
Some see a recovery looming in Hong Kong, with mainland companies leading the way as they emerge from the pandemic.
Over the last 6 to 8 weeks, China has slowly got back on its feet. We're seeing very much a V-shaped recovery. The hiring appetite on the Hong Kong side for these PRC headquartered businesses has really picked up. Right, so they are out there, they are looking for good talent, and they're looking to resume their expansion plans here in Hong Kong.
She says that she sees the financial sector remaining resilient and a demand for roles in procurement.
During any downturn, you will always see organisations investing in their procurement function. How do we get greater transparency levels over our costs and our spend? So that's been really good, and a lot of very senior placements being made in that area.
Aside from the pandemic, the new security law is impacting employment as some tech companies are concerned their data may be affected. This means some jobs may be moved out of Hong Kong.
the global tech companies and also the local companies that serve these big tech companies may see some downsizing or reduce their presence in Hong Kong because there are issues with data protection or because of compliance issue. They need to, on the one hand, they need to comply with obviously the regulations in other countries or globally, but then they could probably at risk of violating the national security law. So there is still lots of uncertainty.
But he says the upside of the security law and the international reactions to it means the Hong Kong exchange will see many more IPOs from Chinese companies.
I think the national security law would have a medium-term impact because in the short term, we see that there are still lots of capital inflows coming in, lots of IPOs, big IPOs coming in the rest of the year. So at least for the financial sector side of things seems to be doing well.
But for many businesses and job seekers, it's a fight for survival as policies around the pandemic continue to change on a daily basis. That's our show for tonight. Next week, we continue to look at the prospect of finding jobs for those leaving school. And for those leaving Hong Kong, why saying goodbye isn't easy. Thanks for watching. Good